Hello, good evening. Welcome to everybody on this virtual discussion that we're going to have on business continuity in times of COVID-19. First of all, I'd like to thank all the panelists who have come here and spent, taken some time from the busy schedule for us. Thank you very much. Pleasure to have you all with us. We have an audience listening in of senior people, so I'd like to thank all of you for also joining in and trying to make sense of this discussion and of this situation. A big thanks to our partner, ET's partner, LogMeIn, for making this, for partnering with us, and for making this discussion possible. We are having this debate, this discussion really in the backdrop of quite an unprecedented calamity. A calamity that is probably unimagined by even the best of the business continuity planning experts. You can think of a world war which involves 50 countries, let's say. You can think of an earthquake that hits a country, maybe three countries. You can think of climate change that impacts certain areas of the world. But if there is a calamity that can affect more than 200 countries in the world, I don't know really if that is something that anybody has imagined. And that is just what has happened. It's a virus, a lethal virus, which has brought the world to a complete halt. People are locked inside their homes, businesses are struggling, economic activity is taking a massive hit. Just to read out some numbers, which I'm sure every one of you would have already seen somewhere or the other. Goldman Sachs has predicted that India's GDP growth for this fiscal 2021 is going to be 1.6%. The Economist Intelligence Unit has predicted slightly better, 2.1%. And there are others, many others who have predicted, similar kind of numbers. The global picture is probably worse. The EIU predicts China's GDP growth to be 1% this fiscal. America, US would be at minus 2.8, and Western Europe would be the worst hit at minus 6% GDP growth for this fiscal. So the United Nations Trade and Development Agency has predicted that the global economy will be hit to the tune of $1 trillion. How things change, right? 3 months ago, the IMF had predicted that per capita income will grow this fiscal in 160 countries. 3 months later, that picture has completely reversed. It's now saying that per capita income will actually fall in 170 countries because of COVID. It's just exactly the opposite. And such a dramatic change of the global economy in such a short time is quite unprecedented. If you look at global GDP growth, OECD has predicted in its interim outlook, it has predicted 1.5% growth. The WEF and EIU have predicted 2.2%, minus 2.2%, and IMF has predicted minus 3%. But just to take a step back, comparatively, if we look at numbers in other disasters, if you compare that, compared to COVID, this global GDP growth was minus 8.4% in the aftermath of World War I and minus 6% in the aftermath of the influenza pandemic of the early 20th century, 1918-19 pandemic. So it actually doesn't look as that bad compared to World War I and the influenza pandemic. But in terms of reach and scope and the in the scale in which it is hitting companies and people across the world, it is much bigger. At the same time, there is some good news also. Good news in terms of good expectations. So there's some positive expectations. There's a television debate between Nobel laureates Amartya Sen, Abhijit Banerjee, and other economists like Arvind Subramanian and Kaushik Basu, in which they predicted that once COVID-19 crisis is subdued and the virus is, subdued, then the economic activity is likely to pick up very, very fast. Demand is going to come back, and businesses are going to grow again. And the IMF has predicted that the next fiscal of 2021, the global GDP is likely to grow by positive 5.8%, which is also a huge turnaround. If it is going to be minus 3% this fiscal, that's almost 9% change in the economic prediction, which is phenomenal, which is great. But today, if we look at it, all of us are witness to it. And no matter which TV channel you look at, whether in India or you look at BBC, you look at CNN, you look at any New Zealand channel, it is the same scenario everywhere. Empty roads, people with masks, people struggling, businesses stop, airlines are not moving, cars are not moving, nothing is moving, everything is closed, and only essential items are available. So obviously, businesses are struggling. There have been reports of companies firing people, cutting down on salaries. They're doing different things to reduce the financial impact on their business, which they are expected to do. At the same time, there are stories of companies who are, paying their employees despite work not happening. There's a lot of good sentiment that's going around as well. Working from home has become a really big trend. In fact, all of us on this panel today are working from home. I'm conducting this panel from home. All our panelists are at home, as you can see. You can't make out from my background, but you can make out from the others that we are all at home. And this has become really quite a trend. I expect that all of you in the audience are also watching this from home and listening in. So, how do we tackle this situation? It's a situation that nobody expected. You cannot expect things like these, but you have to handle them nonetheless. You have to keep moving. You have to keep your businesses moving. You have to keep your life moving. Yeah, so companies are adopting different practices, different methods to run their operations. How are they doing it? What are they doing? Are there any best practices that are coming up, right? That can also be not only help us in this critical situation, but could also possibly help us, carry forward this even after this crisis gets over. And so for this, to get a deeper understanding of this, we have leaders, 5 leaders from different industries here today with us, joining us for this panel. We have Chandan Barve. Chandan heads the India operations of SunLife Financial Asia Service Center, which then that service center, it provides business processing, IT, and investment research shared services to global businesses of SunLife. Yeah, which SunLife, of course, is a global major in insurance, investment, asset management, right? Then we have JB Singh. JB Singh heads Interglobe Hotels, which runs the IB's group of hotels in partnership with Accor. And Interglobe Hotels, of course, is part of the same business group that owns Indigo, which is the country's largest airline. Krishna Kumar heads global delivery for Sasken, which is a technology service provider of product engineering and digital transformation services. Sasken has global operations, so we'd like to hear from him how globally they are managing their things. Mohan Sitharam is a seasoned HR veteran. He heads HR at Subex, which is one of India's earliest software product companies. I think many of you would have heard of Subex. Uh, Subex provides telecom solutions, to 75% of the world's top 50 telecom companies, which is quite an amazing track record. And we have Rahul Sharma. Rahul leads India and SAARC operations for LogMeIn, and LogMeIn provides software for virtual conferences. In fact, LogMeIn software is what we are using today for this particular panel discussion, which you have all logged into. And LogMeIn's platform supports, and this is pre-COVID numbers, like Rahul, so I hope the numbers I suspect would not have been updated on your website yet, because this is an ongoing situation, but LogMeIn's platform supports tens of millions of daily users, more than 1 billion customer interactions, and 20 billion voice minutes per year, which is actually quite a lot, right? And I suppose those numbers would have climbed quite a bit, Rahul, right? In the wake of COVID, because everybody is now working from home, learning from home, exercising from home, everything is happening from home, and people are using all sorts of, web tools to come together and continue life. So, and of course, I am here. My name is Alokesh Bhattacharyya. I am a senior editor with the Economic Times, and I'm the luckiest guy amongst all of you because I get the best view, and I get to hear all these people right up front and right in the middle of this discussion. So I'll take you through this. We will take some questions from the audience towards the end, and you know how to place your questions. You can use the chat function on the window. Please do identify yourself when you're asking the question, and just to let you know that we have limited time. So if there are many questions, we will probably not be able to answer them all. We'll try our best to answer as many as possible. But do forgive us if we are not able to answer all your questions. So now we will start the discussion, but before we start, I'd like to invite Rahul Sharma from LogMeIn to say a few words, please, before we discuss.
Thank you, Alokesh, and good afternoon to everybody. First of all, my congratulations to Economic Times to set up such a wonderful panel. Industry leaders, JB, KK, Mohan, Chandan, welcome on board. Pleasure to have all of you on this panel and to get your views. We've got some diversified industries being represented out here, from technology to healthcare and aviation and insurance. So I'm sure we'll get some nuggets of gold in this conversation. As a technology partner with Economic Times, we are very happy to have all of you on board. And last but not least, thank you for the audience. I think as per the last count, there are over 300 people attending this, which seems to be a good turnout so far. And, I hope to get a lot of good insights from this panel, as well as some really good tough questions to all of us from the audience. So thank you and welcome again. I'll turn it back to you, Alokesh. You're on mute.
I'm on mute. You need to get used to this. So, let's have some opening thoughts on this subject. Quick opening thoughts. Let's not make them too long. So, I'd just like to, business continuity in the times of COVID-19 is something that is very pertinent today. It's something that all of us are facing. And what are your opening, thoughts and insights that you really would want to share? We'll start with JB.
Yeah, sure, Alokesh. Really, for a business like ours, business continuity for us was all about immediately, the whole cash piece of the business. We had to ensure that that was sort of secure and we could map every sort of element of the cash. And because of the uniqueness of this, there was the whole safety piece, safety around our people, around our customers. Our hotels were full. Safety of our assets. So that was the other piece that was very, very important for us. And I think what we did focus on was really after that was really two areas. And the first area was the immediate, is to sort of get everybody completely focused on the situation with lots of transparency and communication. And I think that's where we spent the first 3 weeks. And very quickly, I think within a week we mapped our first quarter very, very accurately, which is the quarter we are in. It seems to be running on plan the way we mapped it, and we have already started work on the rest of the year now and doing multiple scenarios. Lots of work around the customer, the key element of our business. So lots of communication with the customer from a marketing standpoint, from the relationship programs and the loyalty programs that we have. That was it really, is just secure every element of the business. Lots of focus and communication with all our vendors. I think they're completely engaged. We have a very strong vendor sort of a program. So keeping them aligned with ourselves in where we are at every stage. And of course, the regulator. Our businesses like ours has a lot of sort of touch points with the regulator. So there's a lot that's going on with the regulator, not just in seeking, as it's popularly known, financial help sort of a thing, but also advice and helping. We opened our hotels for quarantine. Our other company, Indigo's flying medicines and so on across the country, and so on. So I think in a nutshell, Alokesh, being very, very alert and engaging with every stakeholder that's connected with our business.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Krishna.
Yes, hi Alokesh. So, so in Sasken, the way we were sort of better prepared, if I can say that, and the reason for that is we have something called as an ERT, team, okay, emergency response team within the organization. And the first thing that we did is we renamed that as, instead of ERT, we said ERT COVID, so that it gives the importance that whatever we are doing right now is only for the COVID as such. So we actually anticipated something like this could happen maybe a couple of weeks before the actual shutdown happened. So we spent a lot of time planning, coming up with multiple scenarios and all that. Not all the work can be done out of home. Like you said, Alokesh, there are some things where you still need to go to the office and there is some dependency on some hardware or something like that. So we had to do a very detailed, meticulous planning, but our focus was always people first and then business continuity. So we tried to, it's not a balance, but people first is and no questions about it. That's a #1 priority for us. Safe, people are safe. They're able to do their jobs from their home, and or if they're required to go to the office with the passes that the government is providing, etc. So far, I would say 95% of all the work that we are doing for all our customers is going pretty smoothly.
And so, how much of your workforce will be working from home currently, approximately?
I think 99.9999, maybe a few guys are working from the office, but other than that, it's pretty much everybody is working from home, including our centers in Finland and US and all other places. People are all working from home.
So you would be having cross-country teams also, right, who are working on certain projects, and so they would be using a lot of collaboration software.
Yes. So Alokesh, the good thing is that I think the technology landscape has changed dramatically over the last 15 years. So right now you have so many plenty of software collaboration tools that you have, be it for just talking to people or project management tools, etc. So that is sort of established already. So it just gets extended further. Instead of you going to your office, you just work from home. Yeah, the only challenge being internet. We'll anyway talk about it in a bit.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Mohan, coming to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Sure. Alokesh, as you started, it's a non-trivial scenario. All assumptions we made will work were put into test. Krishna was talking about ERT COVID. At Subex, we requested the CEO to head that. Every morning, 9 o'clock, we all get together and CEO chairs the conversation to say what is working, what is not working. As a technology company, as a product company, we can claim that we are a low touch when compared to the dependence on office is concerned. But all that was put into test. Working from home was part of our culture. We brought it in quite some time ago, and people work from home. But we had never had a scenario of 100% of people not coming to office. They did not even know that there were some people who preferred to use desktops and they did not use laptops, and they wanted to run their complicated this thing on desktops, so they had to come to office. So so that many people logging into the system from outside the firewall itself was a challenge for us. And I would be lying if we say that we did not get a hiccup. Of course we got a hiccup. The whole industry got hiccup. All of us struggled for the first 1 week, I want to say, till we figured out what it was. And what we attempted is that we attempted half of the team to come to office in person before the lockdown, and half of them to work from home, and we swapped for 1 week to figure out the load part of it, connectivity part of it, delivery part of it. And we took a week to settle down, and I want to say that now we are comfortably working from home. And the question you asked, Krishna, 100% of Subex across the globe work from home now.
Wow. And they're all working at more or less the same, I mean, taking time zones into account, of course, but at least the India workforce was working at the same time. So there's also a lot of pressure.
Actually, it is more time we are spending in front of the computer or the telephones when compared to what we did otherwise. The collaborative tools, we always spoke about collaborative tools, but for the first time we realized the value of collaborative tools, and it's of been great, phenomenal help in letting our life continue the way it ideally we perceived it to be.
Yeah, interesting. These days, I think when somebody gives me a phone call, I say, why are you calling? Why is this person calling me on the phone? Video call. Everything is video call these days, right? Every day I'm having some 6 video calls, and at the end of it, you expect every call to become a video call. The whole concept of communication is changing because of this scenario.
The complete behavior is changing. The complete behavior is changing. You're bang right. People are a lot more comfortable turning on the video now, which we weren't in the past. Empathy has become a key attribute of an organization now, which we did not care to put our finger on. So there are so many things which have changed, and there are so many things which are going to be different when we get back to work. We will talk through this during this call.
Great. So I'll come back to you, with more details on
Yeah,
that. Chandan's turn,
Alokesh,
but Krishna, you have a point to make. Yeah.
yes, just one point, just adding on to what Mohan is saying.
Yeah.
At least in the IT sector, I can tell you that this is by far the largest, biggest logistical exercise that has ever been carried out. So many
Right.
people have to be allowed to work from home. Laptops to be arranged. Connectivity needs to be checked. VPN needs to be configured. A whole host of things has to be done, and I think we have pretty much very well lived up to that expectation as such. There
Yeah.
was some here and there, but then that's where it is. That's it.
Yeah. In our company, some people have even brought their desktops home, because they're more comfortable. You took the point that Mohan was saying. The desktop had to be carried home, and you work on it. So,
Sure.
Chandan, your initial views and your financial services and back-end work, it's a very, very heavy duty, processing. So tell us about
No, it is.
your initial thoughts.
Yeah, no, it is, Alokesh, and so SunLife is a global financial institution, and we are into asset management and insurance. So it's a Canadian insurance company with worldwide presence. Clearly it's an unprecedented global crisis, something which none of us have seen. In fact, this in itself is an opportunity wherein we are having a virtual panel session. Otherwise, it always used to be an in-person session, but this kind of a webinars is clearly the new normal. What we have done all throughout is we have actually thought through each the life cycle of each process, what exactly and who's getting impacted. And many times what happens is we just think about the feeling, how an employee feels, how a vendor feels, how a client feels. We are kind of thinking, not just thinking about the feeling, but we are feeling the feeling. So it's basically demonstrating the empathy wherever we can and wherever we are thinking. As Mohan said, we are also kind of bit ahead in the game because we have been investing in progressive technologies over the last few years. So digital enterprise is SunLife's strategic objective, and that's the reason everything what we do is with a digital mindset. So focus was always there to invest in new age technologies, collaborative tools. So people used to always work from home. Obviously right now there are 100% people working from home, but work from home was as such not a kind of an alien topic to us. There is also our workforce is young. Our workforce is comprising of millennials, so they have actually adapted very well to these
Okay.
changing times. And Alokesh, what I also feel is in these times, the organization's culture or the culture which has been built over the years, that actually comes very handy or is very important. In these times, our employees have really partnered with us. They have partnered with us to ensure that the impact on the eventual clients is minimized. So they actually are basically wanting to know more how they can contribute in this
Right.
pandemic crisis. So they are actually
True.
driven by a sense of purpose, clearly. And over the many years, the culture building initiatives and all the interventions have clearly helped us. So a combination of investment in technologies, combination of investment in talent, being a little bit proactive, all in all has kind of helped navigate through the crisis.
Cool. Okay. Interesting. There's a lot of commonalities I can see. Rahul, your opening views.
Yeah, so we see um, this pandemic to be in three kinds or three parts. First is obviously the healthcare crisis that it's causing across countries. Like you mentioned, Alokesh, there isn't any country on the planet, or there are very few countries on the planet who are not impacted by this outbreak. And so first and foremost, the healthcare crisis is front and center of everything. I think from organizations to economies, everybody is thinking about first and foremost the safety and health of their workers. And I know this various geographies are at various stages of this cycle, and given what you want to believe, there could be a second wave or a third wave, but it seems like there is a massive healthcare crisis which is testing almost everybody from all walks of life. So I think that's one part of it, and we want to make sure that at least what's in our control, which is our employees, our partners, our customers, we can support them in this in this stage. So I think we've never seen more amped up CSR outreach that LogMeIn has done globally as we have done during this time. I think both from the impact of this pandemic as well as the need of the hour and I'm sure all organizations are stepping up their work in that direction as well. I think the second aspect of this would be the economic impact, which people are. There are various, depending on who you want to listen to and agree with. There is percentages which are being given out, which are from negative to 2-3% below what the initial this year's predictions were looking like. And I think there's a far bigger economic impact which will happen in terms of across all the kinds of businesses that depend on physical working. It is becoming really challenging. I mean, think about, I'm sure JV can give some insights around the airlines industry on how it is being hit, the hospitality, the hotel industry, and how that is. I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me try again. No. So while I work on my audio, maybe you can carry the conversation forward and I'll come back to my points a little later. Or if it's better, I can continue now.
I think you can continue. I think the echo has stopped.
Okay, great. So yeah, that is the second impact, and I'm sure each one of us knows somebody or the other who's getting economically impacted during this time, and the assessment of that is very difficult right now. I think there will be a push on economies, there will be a push on businesses to start adjusting to the new normal once we ride out the healthcare crisis that we are living in right now. As a company which is born in the cloud and has a DNA of technology which makes people work remotely, I think from our standpoint, we've never seen the usage of our technology go up so much as we are witnessing right now, which meant that not only did we have to make sure that 22 offices, 4,500 people globally start working from home, which is a part of our DNA or our culture. So we take to it very naturally. But this also is a way in which now, we can step up and demonstrate to our customers and people who are in need for such technology to make sure that they continue operating. So very early in this cycle, what we did was we actually announced giving our technology free to 4 or 5 verticals, which meant that if you are in the healthcare business,
Is everybody else on mute? Just checking.
Okay, coming back to what I was saying. So
There is a certain echo even when I'm speaking. Okay, let's try.
Okay, one more time.
Yeah, sounds
all
good.
Right. So we actually went out and gave emergency remote work kits, which consists of technology like GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar to organizations who are in the healthcare space, free of cost. They don't have to pay anything to LogMeIn for using that. This is just to ensure they maintain their business continuity. This was then extended to educational institutions. You can be a school or a college or any ed tech company who wants to expand use of technology to provide online learning. We further extended this to not-for-profit organizations and for government. So, and this was done worldwide. So this is our way of sort of stepping up and participating in the way we can help organizations adjust to the new normal depending on which industry you come from or what the nature of your business, it's not easy to be working remotely, especially during a lockdown. Some of us in technology who have an understanding of working from home take to it naturally, but it's very different from working from home during lockdowns. You can't literally step out of the office. You can't literally step out of wherever you are, and your screen times goes up. There are situations in which, just like Krishna mentioned and Chandan alluded to it, a lot of our workforce is young as well. Some of them they are living in paying guest accommodations, which is not easy to find a place to sit down and work for yourself, and stuff like that. But from a business continuity standpoint, since we have this in our DNA, I think we announced our offices closing 2 weeks before India actually went into a lockdown, and from day one of that working remotely, we had all of our operations globally running remotely, which, mind you, has things like data centers, which are being worked remotely, which has a network operation centers out of our Bangalore office, or a SOC security command center, again out of the Bangalore office, and all of the products that we have, 17 of them running globally, all of that remotely. So yeah, it's been challenging time. I think coming out of it, organizations, humans as well as economies, they'll become more resilient in first of all accepting what the new normal looks like. Alokesh and I were chatting before this. I've had so many conversations with captains of industries these days who are now thinking about, I have such big campuses that I've built for all of my workforce. Do I really need to spend so much of real estate building up such big campuses where I can make my 90% or 95% of my workforce work remotely in any kind of a scenario, be it a pandemic or otherwise as well. Think about the carbon footprint impact that we are making just by doing this. I mean, every day we get reports which are coming out like, the Bangalore, the weather has become better, the pollution is reduced, and stuff like that. So there's a big carbon footprint impact as well out of this. Those are my, opening thoughts.
Thanks. Krishna has a point to make.
Yes, just expanding on the point that our pollution levels have gone down and it's much better outside, etc. I think NASSCOM, at least for the IT sector, I can speak about, NASSCOM and the IT companies should come up and maybe work with the government and say that we should have an annual work from home for IT sector. 40 lakh people working from home once a week. Maybe we can time it during the international, what is it called, the Environment Day or whatever, that week will make a big impact. The rest of the people can enjoy good weather outside.
Especially in Delhi. Especially in Delhi. I just realized I'm unmuted. It's quite interesting because, of course, financial services is very technology driven these days, and you're not technology companies, for you to have a collaborative kind of platform ready from before, which you have been using, maybe not on as big a scale as you are using today, but you would have still been using it in a certain sort of share of your workforce. But in I wanted to come to JB on this because in an industry like yours, JB, hospitality, it is a touch and feel industry. That you cannot serve customers remotely. You cannot, they cannot stay at a hostel and you serve them, from somewhere. They have to come to your hotel to stay, right? And the service is right there at the hotel. So the kind of impact that you are saying, because you can only possibly do the backend, some of the backend stuff, remotely. But is any revenue coming in at all? What are you doing to make your business run, or is first quarter completely gone? Can't hear you. You need to unmute.
I was actually feeling very jealous hearing all my colleagues talk.
Sure. You're back on mute again. We can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I was saying I was feeling jealous hearing all the colleagues talk. It almost seemed like business as usual for them. No, you're right. It's very, very different for us. And yes, we do have a fair amount of back-end work that can happen from home and is happening. You know, we have lots of programs, that sort of platforms that we work on, but the large part of the workforce is literally sitting at home and with nothing to do. And therefore, you know, the employee engagement sort of exercise is quite different in keeping you know, all these individuals aligned. You know, from a business perspective, you know, Alokesh, it's a washout. I mean, you know, the industry occupancies at this current state is possibly must be hovering around anything from 5 to 8%. And that also must be people who are stuck naturally because there's nobody sort of moving around, restaurants are shut and so on. So all our scenarios that were built for the first quarter, which we started to do middle of March, is all sort of based on zero revenue. So it's a big washout as far as this industry is concerned. It just applies to our hotels, but it also applies to, you know, the restaurant business, the airline business. It's a similar sort of a story. And as we all know, you know, it's a highly perishable sort of business. You know, the beds go as the day moves on. But having said that, there's a lot of work that's now being done in understanding what the re-entry would look like. And many scenarios are today being worked upon on what customer expectations would be. And some very early thoughts, you know, given all the health, you know, the alarming stuff around health. There is good news for organizations that have invested in being compliant, and those that today run very sort of solid businesses with strong SOPs, you know, very high level of sort of customer engagement and so on, which is all, you know, branded hotels like ours, as opposed to, as you know, this industry has got a huge amount of unbranded inventory that sits out there. And in countries like ours, they're not compliant and, you know, that kind of stuff, and they form a very, very large share of the market. Customers today will look towards, you know, responsible lodging businesses, you know, responsible hoteliers. So for us, re-entry will not be as difficult as it would be for a very big part of the industry, because those SOPs anyway exist for us. I mean, just this morning, I mean, you know, we do these calls in the morning with the warding at the lobby, stuff like that. Our air conditionings are anyway, you know, sort of have all the filter plants that exist over there to make sure that air is clean and so on. I think it's a tough time for us. We don't see anything much changing. Re-entry, you know, at least for the next 2 months, re-entry will be slow. I agree the economy will pick up. We are all very bullish about the economy once the sort of the doors lift. But I think high contact industries like ours will take a little bit more time. I think we need to be very active on
Maybe are you still there?
how we engage with
Maybe you can mute your
our
microphone because we're
stakeholders.
not able to hear you. We'll come back to you in a bit. There's some
Especially
connectivity. I think you can't hear
our
you.
customers.
Okay, it's got disconnected, I think.
Communicate to them that they're safe in our hotels, and take it from there. And we follow.
Okay, JV, can you hear me? All right. Some of your points were not very clear towards the end. I think there was a connectivity issue at your end. We'll just come
Yes,
back to that.
I can now. I think something sort of went off. It could be.
Yeah. So you were saying that the re-entry would also be tough. I was reading
Okay.
up some reports which said that most industry executives,
Okay.
hospitality,
Where
they
did I
feel that
drop off?
you're talking about the re-entry. How the re-entry would look like.
Yes. Yeah. We are highly capital intensive. I mean, if we look at the whole industry, I mean, it probably owes about 45,000 odd crores to banks. The industry is expected, if everything runs what is called a best case scenario, will probably hit losses close to $1.5 billion if everything starts to revive by June. These are very big numbers for the industry. And
Right.
an industry has to be very, very sort of cautious, how it gets back. The organized sector itself, with about 150,000 odd rooms, with 200 odd thousand odd staff, uh, they have to be very, very cautious, because a lot of these big chains like ours, a lot of our costs are based on sort of a central pool, so that you're spreading costs evenly. So we have to be very, very careful how we get back. That's one. So there's going to be a lot of sort of fiscal discipline and monetary discipline as we sort of get back slowly into business, which to start, how much to start. Many, many scenarios are being worked out today. That's one.
Okay.
The other
And what sort of,
big
sorry,
one, like
please
you
go.
said, the whole customer contact piece is building customer perception.
Hmm.
Yeah, is around building customer perception. And what I was saying was branded hotels like ours already exist with all those SOPs. So that piece will not be very difficult for us.
Right. Right. The thing also is that I was reading some reports about, most hospitality industry executives feel that things are not likely to improve before September, which is slightly on the gloomier side. If you look at it, September is like first 2 quarters gone, and of course, the government has now come up with certain uh, eases on the restrictions, if you might say that, after April 20th. But that does not, of course, apply to the hospitality. They've given some, they've eased out some of the restrictions, especially for ITAS companies, for e-commerce companies and SEGs and some others. And of course, subject to the thing that COVID-19 will not reappear in those places. But do you really see this going
Look,
on till September, the hit on the finances of hospitality?
I think this it's going to be possibly the entire year. But Alokesh, everything really depends on how the health piece is taken care of and how
Right.
the sort of the lift off happens. But I think what we can safely say is whenever everything opens, it'll take hotels at a window of at least about 3 months to get back to some sort of
Normal.
operating, I won't say profitably, but something to say, okay, I can keep my air conditioning running now. I think it'll take at least 90 days, bare minimum, where everything
Right.
lifts off. And it's not going to be a lift off like that. It's going to be staggered. It'll be a little bit of flights. They'll start off. Green spots will get opened. And that will be expensive for us, but then, it's cash flow for us, so we'll go for it.
Yeah. At least
So
some cash
it's
coming
very
in.
difficult for me to say if it's September. It could be September. It could be July, August. But we are already in May now with the current thing. So even if let's just say if everything was to just open end of May, then you're looking at 90 days to say, okay, we've got some movement in the buildings.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really tough. And
Yes.
thanks for that insight. And so you are depending fully on your, reserves, cash reserves, and bank balances right now for your salaries and all to staff. Are there any hiccups on that front, and people are comfortably taken care of in your organization, in the
Yeah.
rest of the
You know,
industry? How do you see?
So that's one of the things that Interglobe's very good at. We are just so people focused that And it was alluded early in the conversation about culture. It is so true what Chandan said. Our culture and our connectivity with our people is really taking us through. So we've been through these crises before. This is possibly one of the first crises where normally in a crisis, what happens, Alokesh, is the travel business is the first to tank and the first to get out. But in this one, he's been the first to tank. He'll probably be the last to get out. So that's a bit of an odd one for us. So we've seen holes like this. Interglobe always carried its people. Yes, we are looking at all our cash reserves. But having said that, we've done an outstanding job. We've ripped out almost 65% of our costs, and we've done a fantastic job with deferments, a little bit of support from the government on moratoriums on term loans. We are heavy capex sort of dependent, and we should be running. We will be mortally wounded, but we will get out of this.
Yeah, but apart from capex, you also have a lot of opex, right? Because every day is an expense.
Yeah,
Chandan,
absolutely.
Chandan, please come in. You're on mute. You're still on mute. You're still on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. No, I was muted by the organizer. Yeah. So Alokesh, the point which, especially on this point, I wanted to make a mention what we are doing at SunLife. We are actually, going really beyond. So one is from an employee standpoint, we actually made, a few days, the salaries, the bonuses, that payment actually was made a few days in advance in the month of March. So the normal cycle, we actually advanced it earlier to make sure that people get cash in hand to manage any exigencies. That's one. Second part, from a client standpoint, because we are insurance business, it's essential service. People depend on us because we are a life insurance company. We are actually extending periods of premium payment wherever our clients are requesting for that. So that's the second initiative which we are taking. And the third one, we are actually proactively speaking with our strategic critical vendors who are our business partners providing us services to understand, if there is any financial support, any advance payments which they need, because we understand they are in crisis and they are our partners. We are in this together, so we are actually making sure that they are adequately, capitalized from their end. Because unless and until they are going to run their operations, they will not be able to support us. So there are those proactive and steps we are already taking. Yeah.
That's really good to hear. Just coming to Mohan, but at the same time, insurance claim percentage has also gone up significantly during COVID. Right? A lot of insurance premiums, policies are now being claimed. So that is also a reason. Mohan?
That's true.
Alokesh, there are 2-3 things. One, I agree. JB has a reason to envy the rest of us. We are not in that space wherein it's a complete washout. But having said that, the gloomy quarters are going to come back and bite any industry. And I can claim that telcos are least impacted today, and they are my customers. So I would do well, but it is a high-touch sale. From the sales perspective, it is high touch and we are going to struggle. So the quarters are going to be gloomy. It's important that we budget that in our own minds. The second piece is that talking about the culture piece of it, honestly, I'm a little confused. We brought in flexibility because of the millennials, all that we were talking. And it is the millennials who are calling me now and saying that I want to get back to office. I can't be not in that office, so I want to be at office. So they get to play badminton, they get to do all that at office, so they want to be back at office. The third piece, which is little more on a serious note, that what we have struggled or probably we attempted
one
somehow.
small intervention is that even I am beginning to miss office quite a bit, and I'm not a millennial by any measure. Please continue.
You can claim so, Alokesh. You think like a millennial. So on a serious note, the one aspect which is a very important aspect is the mental health part of it. There are quite a number of our people who are all stuck alone. They couldn't get back to their homes in time. They had to leave their paying guest homes. We made Subex went and made alternative arrangement for them to stay in a place, because for whatever reason they had to come out of this thing, and they are feeling lonely, and it is very lonely life now. So we recognize that, and some of us and our spouses and children have volunteered to be their buddies. So we log on to a call and generally talk about, the series on Netflix to the collaborative tools, efficiency to internet connectivity to everything apart from work. And we just talk to them. And there are at times they actually break down. And it's a difficult situation. We do not know. We are trying to do everything, but we still do not know what it is like.
Yeah, that's true.
The last point which I wanted to make from the media perspective is that we have never seen this kind of philanthropic mindset of people which we are seeing today. Help is flowing from every direction. I want to believe every employee in every organization is writing what can he or she do in this situation, which is very impressive. It is very touching. At the same time, there are some outliers of somebody beating up a doctor, etc., which is also very disturbing. So media gets us into that mode when we watch news.
Even I watch very little news. Just
Very
for the
good.
record. Just watch it twice a day. Yeah, Chandan.
Yeah, no, Alokesh, I just wanted to make a mention to what Mohan said. So, Mohan, I completely agree with you. The mental well-being, the mental well-being is clearly very important in these times. And we have actually signed up with a company which basically provides us with the employee assistance program. It is focused on mental as well as physical well-being. So they have got, other than the webinars which they do, our employees and their family members can actually call them and get a consultation to deal with any kind of crisis or any advice they need at any point of time.
Right, that's fantastic. Krishna, yeah, you have a point. After that, I'm going to ask you, just taking off from what JB was saying about re-entry. Yeah, and the fact that those great economists talked about quick recovery to the economic situation. After you make your point, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you think about the re-entry and is it really, do you see your business really bouncing back to normal, quickly?
Sure. So just on motivation, one is on the personal side, what Mohan and Chandan said. The other thing is also that while everybody is logging from home. So at Sasken, what we've done is there's a daily, mailer that goes to all the people in the company, all the employees in email. Talks about one positive experience from one particular person, one particular team, and there are photos of how they are working from their homes. A team of 30 people put all their photos together and say, this is how my team is working. So
Wow.
Just positive thinking. I mean, just to tell people that stay positive. You're all in this together. That's one thing. Second thing is communication is extremely important. Not just formal communication, like what Mohan mentioned. We actually talk to all the employees. Between 4 or 5 of us, we try to cover everybody over over 2 to 3 weeks time, so that and we don't see people and we don't meet people here, so it's all on call or through video call. So just want to keep that communication intact and the energy levels high. Okay, that was the point on the motivation level. The other point on will we come back, how quickly or how soon will we bounce back? So I believe the industry that we work also, there will be an impact. Okay, no, this COVID will not spare anybody. That's for sure. So that everybody acknowledges that now. So there is going to be an impact for sure. Now, as Sasken, we work on some of the programs for customers which are high end, which are very futuristic and all that. So some of them we will get paused, some of them will get restarted. We don't know when that will happen, but at least when I talk to some of my customers in the US and the UK and other places, I mean, people are talking about minimum 6 months there is going to be trouble. Okay, and then they are saying slowly things will start coming up. So it's too difficult, too tough to predict how quickly we will bounce back. But one thing is for sure, like most of you said, once things starts getting back, then it will be quite a rapid rise as such.
Okay, Rahul, do you agree with that? Do you think we are going to bounce back? Because once things start, like Krishna is saying, once things get normal, then they will rapidly improve. And the hospitality industry, the scenario is rather different. Where he's saying that it will take at least 3 months after the thing, is lockdown is over and the crisis is averted. Even after that, it will take 90 days for the industry to get somewhere close to normalcy, not fully normal. How do you see this thing?
Well, I think if you look at it from across the globe, there is almost an anxious anticipation with every government to bounce their economy back, because everybody's talking about relief packages. Everybody's talking about how we can stand and support segments of society which has got hardest hit. So I would say that from a policy making standpoint, there is going to be a lot of focus which will be put on putting the economies back. There will be some sectors which will take to it earlier than the others. JV mentioned about how health hospitality is for aviation hospitality will be the first to hit and last to get out. There will be other which will power through during that time. I think pharmaceuticals, that industry will see a big spike. Once even the healthcare crisis is over, there is going to be. I think from a India standpoint, the hardest hit would be the MSME segment, which means micro and small businesses. There is ways in which government is thinking about it, but even as industries think about coming back, there should be some sort of support ecosystem which is built up to stand that part of the economy up, because I think that is the only worrying sign for India. The other businesses, irrespective of which segment of industry they belong to, they surely in 90 days time will bounce back to near normalcy. That's my personal
Cool.
opinion.
It's also a question of what will it take to get back to normal. While obviously it will require the virus to go away. That is the most basic thing. But apart from that, for example, I was reading about of course, right now the government has said that after 20th April, ITS, e-commerce companies, they will be allowed to function, and IT companies with about 50% staff, working from the office. Right, that is the circular that has come. But at the same time, NASSCOM has also been asking the government. We keep reading about these reports about NASSCOM, urging the government for some more relief. For example, it said that IT companies should be allowed to pay bench employees only the minimum wages along with statutory, entitlements. Then last week it told the center that if the center could reimburse the payroll cost of employees who are on paid leave on account of COVID-19 and till 31st March, and sought many other concessions and facilities like tax relief and all. So are these things, is this the kind of support from the government that industry needs? Is this really critical? And like JV was saying that we've got hospitality industry has got quite a bit of support from the government. How critical is government support and in terms of companies and industries getting back to top gear? Mohan and Chandan, I'd like your views on this first.
Sure. Every government will try and do this. So in a way that what will change? Where will the push be? All the years the government push on greener world will gain mass now. So the government will push towards greener world, and that will change. The concept of trusted productivity conflict, which was always there in virtual working, will probably go away. You trust your employees to work from home, and the productivity is going to be at that level which you have tried and tested now. Work from home, which was sort of monopoly of IT companies, is going to make way into every industry now. So the government, which probably I sit in Bangalore and we always complain on the traffic of Bangalore, will be a completely different scenario because the government will push towards these things. I'm not looking at the I'm probably not competent to have a view on what would be the incentivization from the government for industries which would take a hit. But the rest, these are the things which will definitely change. Working from home will become BAU for most of the industries. Trust and productivity will have a completely different understanding, and virtual meetings and collaborative tools have a bigger play to play in the future.
Chandan,
Can I?
you want to say something?
Yeah,
Sure.
I just wanted to make a small correction and just sort of allude to this in the sense that whilst we've got support on moratorium on our term loans, the industry, all of us have massive term loans on the development that we do. But other than that, whilst we've engaged with the government, and for many sort of not just not just a check being cut, but even deferment and things like that of taxes, of license fees. License fees form almost 3% of our total top line. It's large, and hotels are shut. Almost 3% of our top line is just license fees.
Wow.
So I think the government still needs to sort of move fast on it. But to be fair to them, I think their hands are full currently dealing with what's the real situation is dealing with the virus and with getting food out to people, and like Rahul said, looking after that segment. Unemployment has hit 30% or almost now. So we completely understand that. But our industry has such a huge unstructured market. Alokesh, they've already taken a hit. And I've met small restaurateurs on the phone. We've chatted. They've let people go. They're shutting down. The industry will take a big toll over here. I think one of the key things for all of us to sort of get back. I mean, of course, all the right messaging, containment of the virus is fundamental, at least in our business. But I think going forward, the government needs to make the regulatory piece of it really efficient, so development can be good and efficient. We have such huge inefficiencies sitting in our system when we
Can't hear you, JB. There's some problem with your connection. Yeah, JB, can you mute yourself? We'll just come back to you after talking to the others. Chandan has been waiting. Chandan.
Yeah. Sure. So Alokesh, I think Alokesh, for sure, government will have to play a very active role. Clearly, whether it is the confidence building measures which the government will have to take, boost the sentiment, look at the monetary policy in conjunction with the RBI, or relaxing norms from a regulatory standpoint, or the complete impetus which we need on manufacturing sector. With the whole geopolitical crisis, India stands actually to gain. There's a lot of opportunities which can come actually our way, which today probably countries, we read in the newspapers also, countries are rethinking whether there needs to be a relook at the concentration of manufacturing being centered in China, and are there any viable alternatives. I think India stands to gain clearly if we take active steps towards that, making sure that the bureaucracies, the regulatory hurdles are kind of streamlined, and we make the first mover advantage in that front. So while the economy will take some time to bounce, there is also a lot of opportunities wherein the government actually can take a first step in making sure that the business which the other nations will lose out, or there are a lot of industries right now which are rethinking how do we kind of diversify the risk. and India actually stands to gain on that front. The other thing which we also are thinking more from our company standpoint, while the focus has been on digital, we actually are now targeting a paperless organization altogether. So we would like to make all our processes completely digital or technology efficient. So we'll get rid of paper everywhere. So that will actually gain much more momentum now across the industry.
Yeah, that's great. There are already some paperless organizations, and I think more will join that club following
Yeah.
this situation. Yeah, Krishna.
Yes. So Alokesh, I have 2 points. Okay, just adding on to what Mohan is saying. Work from home will become a norm. I think it is clear, and I think Uberization of workforce also will pick up, where you just get experts for a few hours in a week or something like that, and then they work for multiple companies, and it'll become like a norm, right? So Uberization of workforce will definitely happen. And I also agree that all other industries will also start working. One of my friend works for a automotive company. He has never ever worked from home for the last 28 years. So he says now I also get to work from home. So and he sees the benefit out of that. Okay, so that's a good thing. But for all these things to happen, I just have a couple of data points. Okay, which I think the government should consider. The latest speed test report, that the global speed test report that was announced in March, that ranks India at the 130th position, 130 in terms of the mobile download speeds. Okay, so we are
Broadband
at 10
speed.
M. Sorry,
Broadband speed.
mobile broadband speed, mobile
Mobile broadband.
broadband, right? Mobile.
130.
We are at 130, 130, and the speed that we have in an average speed is about 10.2 Mbps. Okay, that is India. The number one position is with UAE, and they are at close to 90 Mbps or so. Okay, now let's talk about landline broadband. Okay, landline broadband, we are ranked at 71, and then our average speed is about 35 or 36 Mbps. But if you look at Singapore, they are close to 200 Mbps. Okay, and I also did a comparison with all the other BRIC countries. Okay, I mean, needless to say, all of them are much better than us, including the neighboring countries of India as well. So I think our focus on optic fiber, laying the optic fiber network, improving the infrastructure, I think that should be one of the real important agenda for the governments to come, and then and that will actually enable a lot of things that we are talking much more smoothly. That's it.
Cool. That's fantastic. Thank you. JB, actually, we had lost you. When you were speaking. Can you just repeat what you were saying about the support from the government?
No, I think what I was really saying was that, so we have an immediate problem to deal with. Okay, so we're dealing with it. The government's got its own issues too, and clearly they must be focused on the virus and things like that. And do whatever the industry is asking, whatever way it can. There will be challenges on the monetary side. Clearly, that will go out to the large unemployed bucket that's today emerged in the country. But what I was saying was that, one of the biggest learnings out of this would be to make our businesses more efficient. I mean, all of us on this panel and who's listening are going to go back and say, when we get back to office, whenever we do, our businesses should be 10, 20, 30, 40% more efficient, and we should be able to do a better sort of a thing. And the government has to think exactly the same way. In our industry, it's extremely inefficient. The regulatory norms that we've been sort of having conversations with the government, around many things, around building norms, around how space gets consumed, and around parking norms, very, very inefficient. The whole licensing piece. I think this is a good time for the government to say, okay, let's just bring the shutter down on this, fix this problem. Here's the magic wand. Let's just get this right. Let's take some examples from wherever, from Germany, UK, Australia, Japan, and try and build an efficient model for you guys so you can build more efficiently. And if we do build more efficiently, we get more cash in the business, because clearly the future will be, it has to be with what we are seeing right now, is that we have to build business models with strong compliances, strong governance, strong reserves, so that when these things happen, we can have business interruption without really getting completely wounded. And that is something that will have to happen. And so that was my point. Regulatory can play a big role for the future.
Would you want to share a couple of recommendations, in terms of how businesses can make them more efficient?
Oh, I mean, it could be, it happens everywhere. Once the first advice is always the easy one. As we go along, we just sort of build inefficiencies in the system. It's just an hygiene issue. It could be around our org structures, our processes, our space management, just the way we manage our customers, just basic running costs. And we do know that every business does that. That's really the first one. The second one, of course, is looking at your complete supply chain, looking at customer expectations, and getting more real about it. I can say that for our business because we bought in our business, real estate is key, and we built models where we are almost 60 to 70% more efficient on a space programming than what a lot of other hotels would end up doing, in large format hotels. So people have to start to reimagine the entire sort of business model and reimagine how the food business is going to happen. What does it cost to do the food business? I'm sure you will have different variants in the tech business or other businesses as well. I think it's a good time for people to workshop. I mean, look at how the airline has moved in the ancillary model. Ancillary business today contributes almost 12% to the top line of the airline business across the world. So we have to start looking at ancillary models, looking at different things that we could sort of woo the customers with and what customers would want. But the big one is how we invest money, and if the regulations are well sorted, I mean, just to give you an example, Alokesh, if you have to build a hotel, it's almost you need to build parking. I mean, we've got a hotel we are building in Bangalore, which is 140 rooms. It's a Novotel, and we have to go 6 floors down to comply with parking norms. Just going 6 floors down will just take your project cost out of whack. The industry will have many examples like this. So I think if the government could just use this time to reset and just say, okay, we can fix this problem so you guys can get efficient, I think that will be a big win out of this.
Great, thanks. So in fact, it's already, we are almost out of time. So there's a question from an audience member who had actually emailed us the question before, and if you're on this call, Yudole, I hope I got your name pronounced right. Yudole is the chief analyst at Info Communication Holdings in Kazakhstan, in Nur Sultan of the Republic of Kazakhstan. So his question, which is relevant to India as well, is that how should SMEs, act to survive in times of COVID? Are there any recommendations for the smaller companies, for SMEs? Rahul was saying a few things about SMEs, and are there any specific change management tools or techniques, that SMEs can use because they are definitely among the most worst hit in this situation? Any recommendations from the panel? Rahul, you were saying something about MSMEs being hit. You think they should focus more on, a lot of people are having to sack their employees and all, but that's not a very nice way to deal with this, right?
Yes, but it certainly is one of the biggest challenges that at least India will face in putting our economy back. Don't forget, we are the world's second largest MSME economy. A huge portion of our economy is dependent on MSME.
Right.
I think the basics is what JV talked about. You will need to get into operational efficiencies, not just operational efficiencies, but running your business a little bit more efficiently. There are, I would say, flab in every business. And when I question or think about my own business and think about it, when we get back to offices, what are the areas that we need to cut down? Space management. It's a very big thing for technology companies. I mean, half of Bangalore is filled up, or 80% of Bangalore is filled up because of technology companies. But look at the amount of space that we have and how we manage that space. super inefficient. Coming back to the MSME question, I think it's going to be an effort which has to be done at the policy making end, at the industry end, as well as with the MSME themselves as well. I know of initiatives that a lot of industry bodies are taking right at this moment in supporting MSMEs in extending with capital loans which can be interest free, etc., and government providing their own support. I know technology companies actually providing space for startups to who are going through this tough time to start incubating in their work centers. I think that's a very good way where industry can extend that support as well. But operating in a little bit more efficient manner would be the key to doing this.
Right, and of course, government is doing its part. Like some of the things that is since after April 20th, it's going to allow all agriculture-related activities, and it is also allowed certain sectors like manufacturing, industrial units with access controls in SEZs, export-oriented units, and industrial estates, townships. They will all be allowed to function. After April 20th, so long as they are not in COVID-19 hotspots, that does provide some relief. Yeah, JB, you were saying.
Yeah, just to sort of add to what Rahul said, one, of course, is, for the MSMEs. Here's what we do in our organization is, we look at every line item and we look at that cost on a continuous basis. So that's one. So just to give you an example, to take down 1 square meter of built up area per room in a hotel when we are developing is something that we will spend weeks on figuring out. How do we take out that 1 square meter per room? Now, when you look at a building like ours, you'll say, are you mad? Why are you wasting your time with 1 square meter? But I just alluded to that example just to give you the detail. And the other day I was talking to my colleagues, and I was saying, when we get back to office, let's not buy any more tissue paper. Let's not get biscuits into the room. Let's just start to get efficient. These are small things. So I think we need to start small. So that's my one sort of advice. I don't know what business you do, but distribution costs usually are always a problem. And there are lots of models, emerging models that are there to give support MSMEs when they are distributing. Something like Shopify and products platforms like that. So, and there are some in India. There's one based out of Bangalore as well. So if distribution is something, you could find a lot of value there. You can grow the market with those models on the online space.
Right. Yeah, Chandan?
Yeah, no, Abhishek, Alokesh, I just wanted to make a point is, every time we are always trying to get a share of pie and we compete with our competitors. I believe personally that this is the time wherein you actually, do a co-optation with competitors. So you basically get all your competitors in the industry, in whichever industry you are, and brainstorm together, whether it is on distribution, whether channels, whether it is around your manufacturing, whether it is around your selling strategy, whether you want to lobby with the government. But I think the need really for any type of industry, whether it is MSME, SME, large corporates, it is basically to come together, brainstorm, identify, because the problem is common, is agnostic to any company. So sometimes the co-optation with competition actually plays a pivotal role.
Yeah, I think there's also quite a bit of messaging between ministries and departments in the government. Yeah, Mohan, you had a point?
No, I was just trying to mention, completely agree with JB and what Rahul was saying. This is an opportunity to hit refresh. We do not have a choice but to hit refresh. There are so many inefficiencies as an organization we would have built. So this is an opportunity to relook at what all the processes we don't need. Unnecessarily they have built up, and because the process exists, there is a cost, there is a people, there are 20 systems, other things unnecessarily exist. So there are things, it's time to shed some of that, including the real estate part of it, which Rahul was talking about. We occupy big places. I don't see a reason why we should. So multiple things, including I'm probably trying to answer the question too in a more agnostic way, that it's time to look at every aspect and see where are we splurging money. Number one. Number two, SMEs, if I compare them to IT startups, as an organization, we got to make a conscious attempt to give business to startups.
Yeah.
Instead of big boys, we should rather look at startups and give them some business. We owe it to them to come up.
You're right. In fact, I've seen some messages, on startups, and there was a suggestion that certain sections of the IBC, of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Okay, now I've got into eco mode.
No, when Palo Alto does it extremely well, why can't Bangalore do it? That is the question I have, right? Palo Alto gives business to startups, so that's what we're going to be doing.
Absolutely, that's a good spirit to have, and it's something that we should look at. And there were some suggestions also of certain sections of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code could be put under suspension for startups, so that they can get over. They need not be defaults of paying back any loans or things like that, and they can have a slightly, at least for 3 months, some of those sections could be put under suspension, and they can get some relief out of that. I think we've had a fantastic discussion, and we have run out of time completely. So we were supposed to end, I think, 10 minutes ago, and we're still running, and we still have quite a sizable audience with us, but unfortunately, we have no time to take any more questions. So I will request Rahul to just raise a vote of thanks before we complete.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do that, I think thank you to the audience for all of your questions.
Mohan, you can't hear?
Can you hear me, Mohan?
We can hear. Go on.
Yeah.
We can hear.
Okay, so let me assure all of the audience members that none of those questions will be unanswered. We will circulate, at the end of this conversation, we will circulate the questions through ET to all of the panel members and get their takes on that. And if you have, obviously all of you will have your emails registered when you came in for this webinar, and we will make sure that those questions responses are sent back to the audience. I also want to thank the panel members to take out time on an afternoon to come and share your thoughts and views. I feel privileged to be a part of this, and it's been a very engaging conversation. I don't remember the last time when I realized that 1.5 hours just flew away. It feels like we just got into this conversation. We were warming up, and Alokesh is telling us to shut down now. So thank you for your time. And lastly, but not the least, to Economic Times, I think you've been a thought leader in that space, and we appreciate the effort that you've put in to bring everything together. And hopefully the benefits of this will be found by each one of us who participated here today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rahul. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for coming here and joining us. And thanks to all the audience members for spending time with us. We'll wrap up here. Have a good day. Stay safe. Stay home.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.